Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Random Troy Radio, episode 468, coming to you on Monday, December 12th, to talk about USC winning their eighth Heisman Trophy, a record eighth Heisman Trophy. It is Caleb Williams, USC's quarterback, of course, wins the Heisman Trophy, beating out Max Duggan, CJ Stroud, and Stetson Bennett. We're going to talk about that and so much more here on this episode. As always, you can follow us on social media. We're on Twitter and Facebook at Reign of Troy. You can subscribe to the show at Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. Our email address is reignoftroy@fansided.com. I'm your host, Michael Castillo, joined along with my co-host here in the Reign of Troy studio in Los Angeles, Elisa Dertol.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. We probably should continue to give our Twitter handles. I need to, in the intro, I need to include them. I just never know how to include them. So you're at Penguin of Troy if you've never been on Twitter before.
Yeah, and you are at MichaelCastFS.
Yeah,
if you've never been on Twitter before.
Yeah, which at this point, I think you probably would have been on Twitter before.
Well, I mean, not everyone has been on Twitter.
This is true. We'll see. Anyway, so we're back. Welcome everybody live watching us here on the YouTubes. We welcome you as always, and it is always a pleasure to have you. Be sure to like the stream, comment, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. Help us grow the show and so much more. Big shout out to everybody in the chat: Hector, Eric, Rema Murdy, Kenny, SJ, Tim, bunch of people. And we're excited to be back here on a Monday where we have to talk about a Heisman Trophy winner at USC, Caleb Williams. Imagine that.
Who'd have thunk?
Yeah, I think about it like, could you imagine if you were told last Thanksgiving, which is BLR, before Lincoln Riley, right? Like, there's BCE and BC, all those things. BLR, last Thanksgiving, BLR. And someone told you, hey, so in a year and 2 weeks, Caleb Williams is going to win USC their eighth Heisman. What would have gone through your mind? You would have been like, first of all, he's at Oklahoma. What the hell are you talking about? Are you crazy? Also, how is he going to win the Heisman on a team? This team is at this point 4-7. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. Are you telling me that Graham Harrell's going to lead Caleb Williams to the Heisman? I would have been a little bit shook. But it is one of those things that when USC goes out and makes a big move, when you make the Lincoln Riley move, you make these things possible. You and I joked during the show, and we've joked many times before that one of the most annoying things is when 5-star guys talk about how they would have never believed that they would be there, and we heard it with CJ Stroud this year. We heard it with Bryce Young last year. All the doubters and blah 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 for these guys who were crowned the next great thing
when they
were 13.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams is one of those guys who was crowned, who was the next great thing. It wouldn't have been a surprise that Caleb Williams had won the Heisman if you had told me that Caleb Williams had won the Heisman in 2023. I would have said, oh yeah, that sounds about right. It's that he said "fight on" at the end of his Heisman speech that's really the surprise. And there was a photo circulating of Lincoln and Caleb standing behind the Heisman trophy doing the fight on, and it just that's the bit that's surprising.
Yeah.
But when you go out and hire a head coach who is legitimately very good at his job, who at this point is a Heisman guru, then yes, this is what you bring to the table. I will say that I did not expect Caleb Williams to come in year one and look this good based on what we saw from him as a freshman. As a freshman at Oklahoma, he looked very promising, but also there was a lot of talk of, he's not the finished article. He still has a long way to go. I thought we'd see a little bit of growing pains from him. And instead what we saw was arguably the most impressive season of play from a quarterback in USC history. And I think that we need to start having that conversation about where this season and where Caleb Williams sits in the annals of USC history.
Yeah, a couple of things there. You said Lincoln Riley, a Heisman Trophy. What was your
Guru.
guru? Yeah, 6 years as a head coach. Lincoln Riley has had. He has coached a Heisman Trophy winner in half of them.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's insane. No, obviously, it helps that he was Oklahoma's offensive coordinator before Bob Stoops stepped down and gave him a great position to start from. Lincoln Riley had a hell of a position to start from at Oklahoma compared to where he started at SC, right? Completely different. But yeah, he inherits talent, but he was a big part in why Baker Mayfield was Baker Mayfield. Someone who was a transfer originally, a walk-on at Texas Tech, I believe Baker Mayfield was.
Yeah, it was a walk-on that transferred to Oklahoma, and
and now he's playing for the god-awful Rams. So, you look at what Lincoln Riley has done, and it's incredible what he did with Baker Mayfield. Terrible with the Browns, the Panthers, but great with Lincoln Riley at the Sooners, of course. And then 2018, he wins it with Kyler Murray. 2019, he makes a run at it again with another transfer quarterback, Jalen Hurts.
That's the thing is, the years that he hasn't had the Heisman winner, it's not that he had a quarterback who sucked. Like, Jalen Hurts was immense that season. Jalen Hurts was really special, and he just didn't win the Heisman. Who won the Heisman in 2019?
2019, the Heisman winner was Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow is going to beat anybody.
Yeah, so there you go. Jalen Hurts doesn't win the Heisman because no one else
was second, by the way.
No one else was going to win the Heisman that year. So really, the only quarterback that he didn't get Heisman level production out of was Spencer Rattler, and he got 3,000 yards and 28 touchdowns out of Spencer Rattler. So
the crazy
thing
is,
a freshman,
we all thought Spencer Rattler was bad, right? Yeah. Because Lincoln Riley has earned the benefit of the doubt with his quarterbacks. And then Spencer Rattler this year blossoms into a great quarterback that suddenly is a top 10 slayer. It's taken down who did they take down? Clemson and Tennessee. So look at the guys he's brought in. So many of them have been transfers, and Kyler Murray won in year one as a starter. Obviously, he was a backup to Baker Mayfield, and he's had more experience that way. Caleb Williams. This doesn't count as year one, right? This is year two for him, right?
This is year two for Caleb Williams
because it's in the same system
of Lincoln Riley. Yes.
Yeah, it's in the same system.
It's let's say year 1.5 though, because he is under the tutelage of Lincoln Riley. But let's also not downplay.
He wasn't the starter at the beginning of last year. He had to unseat Spencer Rattler.
He had to unseat Spencer Rattler. So he only had half a year as a starter at OU.
Yeah.
Comes to USC, and he's got a whole new squad of receivers to deal with and whole new team to lead. So it's not, let's go year 1.5 for Caleb Williams. And as we said, this team is ahead of schedule, and they're ahead of schedule, honestly, because Caleb Williams was ahead of schedule. The level that he performed was just beyond anything that you could have hoped for.
Yeah, I think that when you look at everything Lincoln Riley has done in a lot of ways, Mayfield, Murray, Hurts, Williams, a lot of them, he's gotten the same exact production, save for a little discrepancy in maybe some passer rating stuff. Like Baker Mayfield and Kyler and Hurts had much better passer rating than Caleb Williams does, but Caleb Williams did just as much with his legs as those guys. Maybe not as much as Kyler, but all of them, Lincoln Riley gets the most out of those dudes. And you look at Caleb Williams in of itself, you talked about where he fits in the pantheon of USC quarterbacks and players. We've alluded to it all year. He's the best USC quarterback that has ever lived at this point. That I don't think we can sugarcoat it anymore. He's won the Heisman, so we can talk about him and not feel like we can't say that because Matt Leinart and Carson Palmer won the Heisman, but it's definitive now. You can't not believe that, and if you don't, I'm sorry. Watch Caleb Williams more. You know what I mean? He's got the arm strength of Carson Palmer. He's got the efficiency of Matt Leinart. and he's got the athleticism of like two Rodney Peets.
He's got the flair of Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's not close, and it's not really a fair comparison because Caleb Williams is the modern quarterback.
Yes,
Where
exactly.
like Carson,
which was always going to be unfair to the older guys.
well, but also the older, like Carson Palmer and Matt Leinart were the modern quarterback relative to the Pat
to the
Haydens
Titans, yeah.
and the Rodney Peets of the world too. So it was just one of those things. But like what Caleb Williams is so far beyond what any of those other guys were capable of, because he is the modern quarterback and because he exists in the modern college football offense. But I think the thing that sets Caleb apart too in this season is how much of it was just him being special.
Mm-hmm.
Where, the knock on Leinart is always that, he had a really strong team around him. And I think that the reason that maybe we put Carson Palmer ahead of Leinart in terms of like best, if we're defining best as the most talented or the like number one as opposed to like legacy or achievement, is it like there was a sense that those teams were built to succeed.
Right.
And I think this offense to a point was built to succeed. The offensive line, when you have Andrew Voorhees and Brett Nealon and Justin Dietich in there, like the offensive line performing the way that they were, the receivers that you have, yes, the offense certainly built for achievement. But the way that Caleb had to navigate this entire season, and he had one game where he was the liability. That Oregon State game where he went out and won the game, by the way. So it's not like I'm even gonna I'm not even gonna knock him for that. He was absolutely terrible for 99% of that game, but the 1 minute at the end,
drive he needed to be great.
He was absolutely great. So even that game isn't that much of a knock on Caleb Williams. The dynamism that he shows, I think it's why he won the Heisman this year over other worthy candidates, and why I'm very willing to put him at the top of the quarterback pantheon if we're talking best. He's still got to go out and win a national title in order to unseat someone like Matt Leinart. In terms of greatest.
Carson Palmer didn't win a national title.
Yeah, but I always, if you ask me who the greatest USC quarterback was, I always would say Matt Leinart because of sheer achievement.
Sure.
And the scary thing about Caleb Williams is like he has that path in front of him. He can't do it alone, obviously. But when you look at what USC wants to do in 2023, what Caleb Williams wants to do in 2023, he got USC to 11-2 this year.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna write him off. If the team gets better around him, which I expect them to do in 2023, then I'm not gonna write off those chances.
So we got a question from SJ in the chat. It says, as great as Caleb was this year, don't you feel after watching his games, he is not close to his ceiling? A scary thought indeed. I agree with this. Like, yeah. I think that especially when it comes to some of the mobility stuff, Caleb Williams in the last 3 games went to a completely different level in terms of how he was as a runner, which just added to the scariness of how he was as a passer. Because for most of the year, he was sort of that, I don't want to say just a pocket quarterback, because I think that's reductive to how good he is as a scrambler and throwing on the run and all those things, which was the peak of his game. But you saw a big run against Utah, right? It was a 55-yarder he had against Utah. But I think it was the sheer make you miss kind of stuff that he showed down the stretch, which won him the Heisman. And he just got better as the year progressed, surely. I think that you go back to the Washington State game, and if he plays the way he did against Notre Dame against Washington State, that game SC wins by 40. And we talked about before, that was the best defensive performance was against Washington State. And a game that SC really dominated. However, if you go back and watch that game, they sputtered on offense to the point where they left Washington State in the game. And so, yeah, I think Caleb Williams can absolutely improve next year, which I think gives him a chance to repeat. But of course, we know that nobody repeats as a Heisman Trophy winner, and I surely would not bet on him to win. And that's not a knock on him. That's just a reality of the situation. He's going to be competing against himself. He's going to have to literally duplicate, if not better, all of his production numbers, which is going to be hard. The interception stuff, like I would bet good money that he throws more interceptions next year just by default, right? Like or fumbles at some points.
But
more than the last play of the season. You know what I mean?
You know what's scary though? Like I could see him scoring more touchdowns though.
No, absolutely. I think he could score more touchdowns, but have more turnovers, right?
Yeah, more touch. So just really quickly though, like I think that, yes, bettering his stats this year would certainly go a long way, but to me, it's really just about matching them. Because the hard part about winning the Heisman the second time, and Bryce Young found this out with Alabama this year, and I've said this on Twitter, if Bryce Young and Alabama were in the college football playoff this year, the Heisman conversation would have been very different. If Alabama didn't have 2 losses this year, there would have been a legitimate conversation between Caleb and Bryce Young. Bryce Young gets eliminated essentially because of the performance of Alabama as a team. And so
terrible Alabama, who finishes 5th in the rankings,
10-2
losses.
Yeah, exactly.
Like everyone else would have.
Well, but that's the thing, is if you want to repeat as a Heisman winner, you need to check both of the boxes. You need to have the production, and you need to have your team. You need to have the Stetson Bennett resume, and the Bryce Young or Hendon Hooker
the Stetson Bennett resume.
Those, I mean, that's that's the truth of it, though. So I think a lot of Caleb Williams's Heisman repeat potential does depend on USC, because he only repeats if he is a Pac-12 champion. He only repeats if he is undefeated, to me, number 1 in the country kind of level.
Well, you look at Tebow, and as you know, as a fan, when I was 18 or whatever I was, when Tebow was playing, I hated him.
Yeah.
Absolutely hated him. But you respected what the hell he did, right?
Yeah.
And you look at all the things that he did, and it's crazy to think that he was better as he got older, but he still won the Heisman when he was a sophomore.
Yes.
And he absolutely should have won it in 2009 and been a duplicate. But like, it's really hard. No one wants to allow you to be a duplicate Heisman Trophy winner. And you go back and look at the numbers. He was 5th in 2009. That's insane. Well, it's like, 2008, 2000, all those things. Like, he was so good as a player that it makes it difficult to re-award. And I think the other thing for Caleb Williams is that, Glenn in the chat says, I really hope that he has an O-line next year that can give him the protection. I think that is the big thing, because you said that you think SC will be better next year. I think that we can sit here and say that because it'll be year 2 under Lincoln Riley and they overperform this year. And this is going to be sort of the dichotomy that we talk about all offseason, is like the duality of, on one hand, they are ahead of schedule. On the other hand, they have to figure out how to put together an offensive line that will be as good as the one that they had. And even still, the offensive line was a limiting factor at some points, because you still had Caleb Williams being forced to evade the pocket as much as he did. But they're going to have to replace Andrew Voorhees. They're going to have to replace Brett Nealon. If Justin Diedich doesn't come back, they're going to have to replace him. Like, all these guys on that offensive line, they have to replace, figure out an offensive line that can be just as good. And so, yeah, Jordan Addison leaving, I think, is going to be hurtful to Caleb Williams, but he's going to have Max Williams for another year.
Mario Williams.
He's going to have all those guys in the receiving corps. So I'm not overly worried about that side of it. But the offensive line is where I worry about Caleb Williams, and the team might be better as a whole, but I don't know that the offensive line will be. And SC is going to have to prove that, because that could be a factor that prevents Caleb from performing at an optimum level. Or we just see him running for his life even more, and he dazzles even more incredibly. Who knows?
Well, but that's why I say the team will be better I mean, like the gap between the offense and defense, I expect to close.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know that USC is going to have the number one offense in the country next year, because the offensive line is going to be a big question mark going in. But I also don't think I'm going to give Lincoln Riley and Josh Henson enough credit to say that that the scheme is set up for these guys to succeed. And they have obviously done some good evaluating, and will have their opportunities in the transfer portal
Mm-hmm.
to fill in some of those gaps. And it's not like they didn't deal with a lot of injury issues this year. They did. That's one of the underrated storylines of this season is USC played most of the season without an answer at left tackle. I mean, Mason Murphy did what he could, but the dude was thrown in there when you wouldn't have wanted him thrown in there. And those could be valuable reps for him down the line. But like USC did deal with injury issues at a position that they really couldn't spare injury issues at,
Mm-hmm.
and they did okay. To me, it's about the defense making up for those little wrinkles that you're going to experience on with the offensive line having to shuffle through. And I think Caleb Williams makes up for some of the offensive line maybe being a little bit less reliable. Although he does need the run game to be capable. He does need the run game to.
I'm not worried about the run game though.
Well, but and that's so.
I think the scheme will take up for the run game,
which is why I'm not worried that much about the offensive line, if I'm honest, because I think the scheme is set up for the run game to be successful in most occasions.
Yeah,
you have a quarterback that's set up to make the deficiencies of an offensive line in pass pro disappear to a point.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the real question, and we saw this in the Pac-12 title game, is Caleb Williams staying healthy. If your offensive line is less, then Caleb will have to do more, which means Caleb might have to be put in situations where he's more at risk to suffer an injury. And that is ultimately the number one thing that can derail a second Heisman situation. So there are factors that you absolutely need to account for. But to me, like the fact that I expect the defense to get better can help counter some of those question marks that you might go into next season with on offense, especially when you have a quarterback like Caleb Williams, who, I think is special enough to keep things afloat at the very least. Like, I don't think USC is going to go from being a 41-point offense to a sub 40-point offense if we're talking like scoring averages.
Yeah.
Like if their step back is down to a 40-point offense, then you're still doing rather fine.
Well, the other thing you talk about the defense getting better, and I think the way that you can say that confidently is because the defense, just got considerably worse as the season went on.
Mm-hmm. Between injuries and just between
all those things,
facing the most powerful offenses they were going to face, and also just sort of like losing their minds at a certain point.
Yeah, and that they're in the hundreds and in a lot of statistics, so they just sort of have to get better. We talked about that a year ago then, and when it comes up this past year, they were marginally better in certain areas defensively, but they still need to take more steps forward, and they should. They should just take a step forward because they can't possibly be continue to be this bad kind of thing. So and it's going to be a contract year for not a contract year, but I don't know what Alex Grinch's contract situation is, but certainly a do or die position for him as far as his job's concerned, probably. But we'll see how everything comes to be for SC next year and how it affects Caleb Williams' campaign to be the second two-time winner. Of course, Archie Griffin won a couple times for Ohio State. And as we all know, in 1975, he never should have won that second Heisman Trophy because I will once again pull up the numbers that in 1975, I get frustrated every time I see these voting numbers. It's insane to me. Ricky Bell led the country. He had 500 more rushing yards than anybody else. 500 more. He had 13 touchdowns. Archie Griffin had 4. 13-4. And he finished third in the Heisman Trophy race. Chuck Muncie at Cal should have been picked over Archie Griffin. He averaged a full yard per carry more than Archie Griffin and had 9 more touchdowns than Archie Griffin.
Yeah. So Archie Griffin's double win is the only reason USC doesn't have 9 Heisman winners right now.
The only thing that is good about Archie Griffin winning twice, though, everyone realized how ridiculous it was to the point that now nobody wants to vote for somebody twice.
Yeah.
And so, like, which is almost better, but not quite, because even still, like, there's certainly some guys who deserve to win it twice. Albeit that's more of a common problem now because, up until Tim Tebow won it in 2007, there hadn't been an underclassman. And up until Manziel won it in 2012, there hadn't been a freshman. So, a lot more guys who have the chance of winning it twice now than before. Let's talk about the transfer portal. One last thing, which is semi-related to the transfer portal. Caleb Williams winning the Heisman and being able to come back. We talked about it last year that guys like Jordan Addison wanted to come to SC and play with Caleb Williams. And guys like Mario Williams wanted to come along because of Lincoln Riley, but also because Caleb Williams was coming too. Isn't it even better, like a better sell for SC on the offensive side of the ball, that not only can you come to play with Caleb Williams, but you come with and play with the Heisman Trophy winner? Like, that is a hell of a sell in the transfer portal if you're going to go after the elite talent guys. Like, that's what I thought could possibly win someone like Trayshawn Holden, the former Narbonne Gaucho turned Alabama wide receiver who's now transferred to Oregon. But nonetheless, there's going to be other talented players out there. So
yeah, well, okay, and also, I mean, when you look at the transfers that USC brings in, I think it'll be telling who comes and who doesn't.
Could help on the O-line. When you looked at, like, Caleb Williams likes to bring his offensive linemen to you get a free trip to New York.
Yeah. No, I think anyone who looks at it, if USC wants them and they are on offense, then it's going to take a really good reason to not come to USC to keep them from having the motivation to come to USC. The thing that I want to caution people about is that transfers are not just about the things that fans think they are about. There's USC fans screaming, like, why isn't USC outbidding all of these guys for recruits or whatever? And it's like, money is not, as much as people want to make everything about NIL, that's actually not the primary thing that recruits are looking at, because this is their life. This is their day-to-day, the people that they're around, the city that they're in, the closest to their family, the educational opportunities that they have, majors that are available, relationship with just the human beings on the staff. All of that kind of stuff plays a role. But also, one of the things that we've seen from USC on offense in the transfer portal is that they're very discerning. And the guys that they brought in, for the most part, were also extremely strong leaders, people who fit into the team, people who fit into the roster very well. Extremely well, to the point where, like, Travis Dye is going to go down as one of, like, the great Trojans of the era, even though he played 9 games at USC after 4 years at Oregon. It's sort of those kinds of guys. That's the guys that they're looking for. And I trust that this staff will continue to be discerning on that front, because the worst thing you could do is bring in transfers that are disruptive to your sort of team chemistry.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I think people, don't look at and consider when it looks at, like, why is a team looking at this guy and not this guy, or why is a team taking this guy or not this guy. From the team side of it too, that has to play a role as well. So
yeah, I don't know that I like the word disruptive there, but I get what you're saying. Yeah. I don't know a better word. You know what I mean? You're looking for fits. You're looking for fit. You're looking for guys who, are able to fit your needs, but also fit the culture and fit your ability and fit your NIL stuff, like all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I talked about this off air with you. Can we just rename NIL?
It's a
Can,
bad
can
acronym. Yeah.
it's like it's it. I don't know of a better analogy to say, so I'm not going to give an analogy. But like, it's like the NIL thing is like the that's what. Why don't we just say like endorsements? Can we just use the word endorsements instead of NIL? Because NIL is like such a technical term, and it's like it's the whole thing that it's
We just call it nil.
nil. Sure, nil works.
Yeah.
Anyways, transfer portal. SC has added 2 new Trojans via the transfer portal. Alicia, the big conversation, one of the big talking points all season was USC's special teams. And part of that was because it was, the offense, you couldn't really nitpick the offense much. So you had to nitpick something, and you nitpicked special teams. Well, SC has gone out and gotten a new punter. It is Eddie Zaplicki from Arizona State, all Pac-12 first teamer Eddie Zaplicki. He was 8th nationally with 45.98 yards per punt. This is a big get, is it not?
Yes, and this is also in the age of the transfer portal how USC should approach special teams from now on. Look in the transfer portal, find the best punter and kicker that are available if you need a punter and kicker, and go for it. And I think that this is a huge step for USC to have the sort of punting situation not be an issue. Also, just another one of those things where it's like you don't need to waste your time on a special teams coordinator if you can convince the number one punter in the Pac-12 to come play at your school. Like to me, that's way more important of a thing to approach special teams with. So this is a huge upgrade for USC at a position that they had an opportunity to upgrade, and they got it done. And this is a defensive transfer portal addition to me because field position was an issue for USC this year.
Yeah.
And this is a situation where the field position can potentially be on USC's side more often by having a punter of Zaplicki's caliber. So good on USC. That's how you do it.
Plus, Zaplicki is such a awesome name. It's fun to say.
It's a great name. I am struggling with every time I've tried to say it out loud. I've
Zaplicki. It's not
Zaplicki.
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 Silent C. Zaplicki.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what you do with the transfer portal. When there are guys, I've talked about it before, that guys go into the transfer portal for multiple reasons. Usually because they're over recruited or under recruited. Either way. Under recruited guys like Taj Washington, who goes to Memphis and then realizes, oh shoot, I'm really good. Yeah. I could be somewhere else. That's an under recruited guy. You get guys who are probably over recruited. Consider someone like let's say Connor Murphy, someone at SC who went to SC for who was billed as a high end prospect. Doesn't pan out for whatever reason it is, and needs a new start. Those are guys who were maybe over recruited.
Mm-hmm.
The new transfer rule has kind of opened up the other possibility, which is the grad transfer rule opened up the old guy looking for a championship run thing, which you see in pro sports, like your Raymond Bork kind of thing, going from the Bruins to the Avs and winning a Stanley Cup in his second year over there, like that kind of thing when he's like in his 40s. That opened up, a decade ago when you saw guys like Russell Wilson go from NC State to Wisconsin. Now you are seeing guys who can just flat out move because they have the talent to, reassess things. And that's Caleb Williams. That's Jordan Addison. And Eddie Zaplicki to me is sort of in that camp of like, he is maximizing his potential. And I think that these are going to be probably the smallest amount of guys in the transfer portal are the ones just maximizing their value, but those are the ones that have the most value, and you
Yeah.
absolutely have to go out and find those guys when they're in there. And SC doing that, I think, is a great pull. So good on the Trojans for getting a Ziplicki. Presumably, this means the end of Aiden Sleep Dalton as USC's starting punter.
Mm-hmm.
I The dude was a freshman. I got. I don't think he was terrible by any sort. I think he was fine. I think
He
he's gonna
wasn't.
move on and find a place that works for him.
Yeah,
Presumably,
he wasn't the worst thing going on special teams, but he certainly
no,
wasn't a weapon for USC on special teams.
no, and it was unfair
And
to him that he was probably the lightning rod,
yeah,
right? Like,
well, I think there were just one too many kicks that were like 30 yards that you needed to go 45, and one too many kicks that set up the opposing team around the 50-yard line when you really would have liked to flip the field a little bit. And I think that's what Ziplicki gives you the opportunity to do that Aiden Sleep Dalton was not capable of doing. And he might be capable of that down the line in his career. Like you said, young guy, he'll find his way.
yeah. All right. The other big pull that SC gets is outside linebacker Jamil Muhammad from Georgia State, right?
Yeah, Georgia State, he had
Panthers.
44 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 8 QB hurries, a pass breakup, and a forced fumble. According to 247 Sports, he had offers from Arkansas, Indiana, Ole Miss, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, James Madison, Minnesota, Cal, Arkansas State, Troy, and West Virginia. So a lot of Power 5 programs up in there. You just look at the dude. He looks like a grown man. To me, any linebacker who wants to come and play at USC, bring him in. You need a lot more depth at that rush end position. You need a lot more depth at the inside linebacker positions and everywhere in between. So a lot of really positive reviews from the sort of people in the know about this guy. I think Gerard Martinez from 247 Sports is pretty high on him. So happy to have him. Like I said, all the linebackers, yes, please.
I love how you went from 247 Sports to
24/7
Sports.
It's like caramel and caramel. Like it just depends on what it is in the Stensons.
So, okay. Obviously, we love all our friends over at uscfootball.com. But the 247 thing cracks me up because it's like nobody says 247 unless you work for 247.
Well,
like
except
Marriott.
for me right now. I don't work
like
for
Marriott.
247.
Nobody says I'm going to stay at a Marriott unless you've worked for Marriott. It's Marriott. like just cut the charade. Just call it Marriott. Charade. We all know it's Marriott.
Who says charade?
I do.
Charade. Cut the charade.
Have you ever listened to Pigs?
Yeah.
It's charade, baby.
Yeah, but that's the way they say it in that charade.
I say charade.
You don't say we're gonna go play charades.
I say charade. Oh, Jesus. I say charade. If Roger Waters can say charade, then I'll say charade.
Yeah.
Roger Waters can sit and spin, but that's another story for a different day. We talked about Jamil Muhammad, or I talked about guys who were under recruited. He might be he might fit in that category. You hope that he's sort of the defensive Taj Washington, right? Like someone who, went to a school wearing blue and white in a major city, Memphis, Atlanta. Very similar, named after a cat, Tigers, Panthers. There you go. The comparison just could not get better. 44 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, a sack and a half. We'll see how everything comes to be for him, where he fits in with the Trojans, and when we get to spring and so on. Other transfer portal notes: former USC receiver, USC legend, by the way, Jake Smith, is going to ASU.
Yeah, he's from Arizona, so he's heading back to ASU. Good for him. Hope he finds his place there.
Yeah. And then Arizona defensive lineman Kyon Bars is visiting USC on Tuesday. Also visiting LSU and Miami. 39 tackles this past year, 4.5 tackles for loss in 2022. Will look like absolute fit for SC on the defensive line when SC needs guys there. You don't know the status of Tui Pelotu going forward. You don't know you would assume that Brandon Peely has been here since the 1980s. Does he still have eligibility? I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But like SC needs bodies up there.
Yeah, like I said, with the linebackers, USC also, it applies to the defensive linemen. All the defensive linemen, all of them, every single one. Yes, yes, please. There's room. Come on in. Khan Barr is also, he's one of those guys who played for, not a good Arizona defense, but the last 2 years he's been sort of one of the highlights of that defense. And he would step right in to potentially, I would assume a starting job right away, and could be a huge, huge pickup for USC. But this is the thing about the transfer portal, right? When you're going up against teams like LSU and Miami that also want him, that's number one, shows you that this kid's legit and he would strengthen USC, but also you have no guarantees of picking him up, especially because I was reading about him. He's got family on his mom's side at LSU. He's got family on his dad's side around Miami, not at those schools specifically, but like the region, Louisiana and around the Florida area. So USC is going to have to impress him when he comes for that visit on Tuesday. But if USC gets him, that'll be a huge, huge pickup and one of several needed on the defensive line.
Yeah, we'll see how bars comes to be. You like to keep the bars open. No, I'm not going to make bars.
You already did. You already made the joke, Michael.
Yeah. All right. Another guy that SC is in the mix for is Coastal Carolina edge rusher Josiah Stewart. He's named SC, LSU, and Michigan as finalists. He was second team All Sun Belts this past season, 36 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks.
Yeah, this is another guy who just sort of has the look of being better than Coastal Carolina where he's been. To be in a finalist group with teams like LSU and Michigan tells you that major Power 5 programs are looking at him. He has been prolific at Coastal Carolina. In 2021, as a freshman, he had 15.5 tackles for loss. Ooh. He was named a third-team All-American, not freshman All-American, third-team All-American by, I believe it was Phil Steele. They moved him to a sort of, I think it was one of those where they have the weird names for the backer, bandit backer or B backer or whatever one of those positions that each school has different terminology for.
You know what I hate about those? It could mean anything. Like it could mean the edge rushing guy. It could mean like the roving hybrid dude that's almost like a safety. Like it could mean anything. Like it's again, cut the charade, guys.
So he was playing as a defensive end, more of his hand in the dirt and stuff as a freshman. They moved him to that B backer or backer, whatever hybrid position. His productivity went down, but I don't think his impact went down. He is another one of those huge potential gets for USC. The interesting thing on Josiah Stewart, though, is that theoretically, if we're looking at it, we assume that he and Jamil Muhammad would be recruited for the same position. That sort of rush end, USC's own sort of hybrid backer position. So will that scare off Josiah Stewart? I don't know. I hope not. Because as I said, all the linebackers, please. I think there's plenty of room to get both of those guys playing time and a lot of it in 2023. And they're potentially game changers, especially with the USC wanting to keep up their sack sort of statistics. And these guys can get after it at the line of scrimmage.
This guy's finalists are LSU, Michigan, and SC.
Yeah.
Someone whose finalists are LSU, Michigan, and SC has the belief in himself that he's going to win the job no matter what.
Yes.
So I wouldn't think that Muhammad would kind of scare him off in that sense. So,
but one of those schools is not like the other in the sense of one of those schools. Well, I guess Michigan is a far cry from Carolina as well.
Michigan wears white pants on the road now, I guess.
Yeah. How much does he want to come to the West Coast is I guess what my question would be.
Yeah. Cardinal, purple, blue.
But these are also, we talked about Alex Grinch next year being a show me year. If Alex Grinch wants to legitimately be seen as the viable defensive coordinator for USC, these are the kind of players that he needs to add in the recruiting in the transfer portal, because these are the kind of guys that are going to help get USC's defense up over that hump.
Speaking of show me year, if we talked about how terrible Missouri is for being the show me state, it's lame, right? It's lame. Absolutely,
I can
lame.
say I've never had that conversation with
It's
folks.
it's a lame name. Anyways, USC leads the AP All-American team with selections. Yes, there's more Trojans on the first team All-American AP team than any other school. Look at that. SC gets Caleb Williams at quarterback, Andrew Voorhees at guard, and Tuli Tuipulotu at defensive end. Brett Nealon and Mekhi Blackman were third-team selection. Good on Blackman for getting a pick somewhere. Like, recognition he needed. Like, I feel like he was the most under talked about Trojan all season. Like, the dude was very good at corner. I think you can make the argument he's, I don't think that's an argument. I think that's a fact. He's SC's second best defensive player this year besides Tuli. And Tuli gets the recognition because he got the sack. So the production makes it easy to see his contributions, where it's a little bit more difficult for Blackman to get the recognition. And yeah, good for him. I was skimming through the AP All-American team. Michael Mayer is the first team tight end from Notre Dame, so SC played him. And once again, they screwed up with Dalton Kincaid, third teamer, Dalton Kincaid. What I don't understand.
No, third team is, I think, fair when you consider
how.
That. Because Michael Mayer was the first team and Brock Bowers was the second team.
No,
are you going to put Dalton Kincaid over either one of those?
Yes,
no,
I'm going to put Dalton Kincaid over Michael Mayers. I'm sorry.
I'm not. I mean, no, I think Dalton Kincaid is a hell of a tight end. I think he had a great year.
Two award things will forever upset me. One, Dalton Kincaid not being a Mackey finalist. And two, Christian McCaffrey not winning the Heisman Trophy. Christian McCaffrey not winning the Heisman Trophy. I know I go on this rant all the time, and people probably tired of me doing it, but like, insane that he didn't win the Heisman. But anyways,
I think Dalton Kincaid
we've talked about Dalton Kincaid too much on this podcast.
I just think he's one of those guys that had the unfortunate timing of being a tight end at the same time that Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers were, who came into the season. But this is the nature of these things. He came into the season as not the guy who was the household name. Yeah. No one knew who he was before he took over for Brent Keithy. And I think if you had given Keithy Kincaid's numbers and production in his season, Keithy might be the first teamer because people knew his name before the season started. Like, it's the nature of awards. That's it's like, if you're Dalton Kincaid, like, this is why, certain guys just get screwed every year, especially if they're not at the bigger schools. Not name recognition is part of it.
Sure. No, I get that.
But also, I don't think there's shame in being like a third team All-American.
No, we're splitting hairs for sure. Anyways, The point is, SC gets three guys added to the wall. Caleb Williams, Andrew Voorhees, you already knew because they had selections from last week. Tuli was inevitable that he was going to be named first team All-American in something this week when the Big Five start to come out. So good on him for having that, and we'll see going forward how that helps with things like recruiting, what happens with Tuli's ability to his eligibility. Does he come back? I don't know. Mm-hmm. We're going to find out more on that. Hopefully for SC's sake, he does come back.
That would be
huge for USC.
You want to talk about things that would be game changers for USC. Tuli Tuipulotu coming back inexplicably for the 2023 season, and Jordan Addison coming back inexplicably for the 2023 season. Things I'm not banking on. Things that, again, decisions are made around a lot of different factors. And like, if you told me that either of those guys were going to return, I would say, well, yeah, I could see the argument for coming back to play another season with Caleb Williams, but also inexplicable that either one of those would come back. The NFL is definitely calling. But big ups to all of those guys for getting that vote. If we're talking about the AP All American is now out. AP is an official selector. So I think we're well on our way to Caleb Williams and Tula Tuipulotu being consensus All Americans.
Yeah.
I think we're well on our way to Caleb Williams being a unanimous All American. I think Tula Tuipulotu might also be on his way to unanimous All American.
Remind us
potentially.
the difference between consensus and unanimous again.
Okay, so consensus is unanimous is every selector picks you.
It's all the big five.
And consensus is three of the five pick you. Yeah. So I think that Tuli is pretty set on being consensus. I think there's a very real possibility he could be unanimous. Caleb, I think the only thing that stands between Caleb and unanimous is just one of those random, like someone decides to put Max Duggan. Malcolm in the chat, just for the record, consensus and unanimous are based on the 5 official selectors, not just having a number of All-Americans. It's based on the 5 official. So the AP, the FWAA, the Sporting News,
the
what else am I missing?
The
coaches and
Walter Camp, I think.
Walter Camp, yeah. So those teams aren't. Did Walter Camp already put theirs out?
I can't remember. The thing that is confusing in the SC Media Guide is that the consensus and unanimous are there, but the SC counts more than just those big 5. So if you look at it in the media guide, you see guys who have like, he's a first teamer on 11 different teams or whatever.
Yeah.
Then it makes it seem like it's more than the big 5 that count for unanimous and consensus.
But for the record, Malcolm is correct. The Walter Camp did put theirs out last week, apparently, and I missed it. And Thule and Caleb are first teamers. Voorhees is second team. So he's now, I think, got a little bit more of an uphill climb to get that consensus. But but I think Malcolm's right. Then Thule is already consensus. Caleb is already consensus. Like I said, the real question is, does one of those the Sporting News or something like that just throw a wrench in the whole thing and not go with unanimous? But
so
these are things that like nerds like me care about.
Talking about Thule and Jordan Addison coming back. First of all, Jordan Addison never in a million years is going to come back. I would be absolutely dumbfounded. I just looked up a couple of really quick and dirty mock drafts, just Googling. Rob Rang has him, I think, 16th. And Walter Football. I always love Walter Football because they're so great at SEO. They're always the top mock draft in every single search. As Jordan Addison 21st. Thule not on Rob Rang's list, but he is on Walter Football as 30th to the Bills. So so maybe that means if he's getting first round buzz, that would probably mean that he's not coming back. But we'll see. We'll see how things progress going forward. So, all right, that's going to wrap up all the news that we got. If you're watching us here on YouTube, be sure to chuck your questions into the chat, and we'll be able to get into a little bit of a mailbag segment. Let's start with Eric, who says, do you feel that Caleb's win will start an era of USC dominance similar to when Carson won and Pete Carroll's teams were at the top of college football?
I think that Lincoln Riley's arrival is what does that. Caleb Williams is part of that, but Caleb Williams is only at USC because Lincoln Riley is there. And what sparked the dominance for USC that Carson sort of sparked was just it coincided with Pete Carroll taking over and Pete Carroll building teams. So I think that if you're sort of going to draw a parallel, correlation is not causation there necessarily. But having a Heisman winning quarterback certainly helps you in recruiting, certainly helps legitimize your program as a national contender. And I think that that could certainly be a parallel to draw. It still goes back to me to the head coach and the program that he builds.
Yeah, it's that's the hope. That's the absolutely the hope. We can sit here and say that the offensive line needs a lot of changes, but if there's anyone who's excelled from transfers, it's Lincoln Riley. So, and if there's anyone who's built great offensive lines, it's Lincoln Riley and his staff. He did it with Bill Bedenbaugh over at Oklahoma. He's doing it now with Henson, and we're going to see how that continues to go forward. But everything about Lincoln Riley's run at Oklahoma was plug and play for the following year. And so that makes you think that this can be sustainable, especially in a Pac-12, a conference that maybe doesn't have a lot of national championship contenders. Having said that, the Pac-12 is absolutely peaking, and going into next season, I am fascinated to see what the media poll is going to be like. I think SC will probably win the media poll just because of LA bias that is always there. And SC has any reason to vote for them, they're going to win the media poll, and that's just how the Pac-12 media poll goes. But SC has a chance to win the Pac-12 next year. Oregon presumably looks like they're going to bring back Bo Nix. Michael Penix is back over at Washington. Oregon State, if they ever find a quarterback, is a quarterback away from winning the conference, presumably. Utah, there's no reason not to expect Utah to be right up there as well. They've absolutely earned the benefit of the doubt.
We presume
even when they lose guys now, right? It's not just that this is a golden generation, which was sort of the first time they went there. I thought that, well, now they're going to have to go rebuild. But when they've made the conference title game four times in a row in full seasons and won it 2 times in a row, you have to expect that they're going to be there.
I mean, we presume that Cam Rising
what's his situation?
Is he coming back?
I don't know his situation.
So I believe he has eligibility left.
Well, I think everybody does because of the extra COVID year. So it makes it confusing for all of this, right?
Yeah, I mean, he could leave for the NFL. There might be an argument for him to leave for the NFL, depending on. I don't know. Is the quarterback
an NFL guy?
I don't know.
I think he's a great college quarterback.
Yes, he feels to me like a great college quarterback. But I also don't. I don't know. Transitioning to the NFL also just sort of takes some of landing in the right spot too. But I don't know. Like, do you go in this quarterback class? Do you wait till next year?
I guess he was technically a junior this year.
Yeah. So he does have room.
He does have another year.
So I mean, and that's part of the thing with Utah is if they get Rising back, then yeah, they should be up there in the Pac-12 media poll sort of standings.
Yeah.
If they don't get Rising back, then I have questions about who their next quarterback is going to be. But they're also in an era where it's the easiest time ever for you to
plug and play
a quarterback. Right. So,
but the point to going back to SC stance is that, like, I think SC has the foundation to rattle off a bunch of 10-win seasons, where the bad seasons are going to be the 10-2 ones, and you're frustrated about how missed opportunities, and the great seasons are the ones where they find a way to go 11-1 and 12-0. And I think I think that's the position that SC is going to be in. It's going to be hard next year because the Pac-12 is going to be harder, and SC has to go on the road to Autzen Stadium. They get Utah at home. It's easier to play Utah at home than it is at Rice Eccles, or I guess anywhere else now that include the Vegas game, right? So, like, all these things, it's not going to be easy. Going to the Big Ten is going to be so fascinating, because what does that mean? I'm so curious what the Big Ten, when the schedule comes out and when they figure out what they're going to do with divisions or whatever, is realized. Because is SC going into the Big Ten West? Because if SC is going into the Big Ten West, then I think they have absolutely a chance of continuing this, being in a position to win 10 games every year. If they go and have to play Michigan and Ohio State every year, well, then it gets, a little bit more difficult. That's a challenge you absolutely take on, but like you have to then, factor that into your expectations, right? So like, I don't know. I think that SC's in a position that you can feel good about them right now, the best that you have in decades. Decades meaning 2, and that's a good thing.
When you have Lincoln Riley, you will have a quarterback. You will have an offense. Yeah. The only question mark at this point is how good will the defense be? And that's a question that if USC is serious enough about things, then they will make sure that is not as big of a question as it was this year.
Yes. I will say though, the caveat is Lincoln Riley has shown that even with the defense like this, he can still win 10 or 11 games.
I mean, he did it at Oklahoma every damn year. It's not like Oklahoma had a really outstanding defense. But that's the difference between, winning 10, 11 games is acceptable to a point. Then you run into the Mark Richt problem of...
Right, but SC would kill to win 10 and 11 games
right now
at this point.
Yes, at this point, yes. And you just need to put yourself in a position where one year you have the quarterback who...
Yeah. This is why I don't understand the whole like, Lincoln Riley, he couldn't build a defense at Oklahoma, and like you're gonna get upset when he only wins 11 games every year. Like, are you kidding? Like,
y'all have no idea.
Did you see what SC fans were like in the heart of BLR?
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me?
We will take 10 and 11.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Anyways, Scott says over under Reggie gets, when Reggie gets his Heisman back. I don't even want to set a line for that because I don't know. Like it's so off the board, right? Like it could happen tomorrow, it could happen never, and I wouldn't be surprised at either. Am I out of line for saying that?
No, I think you're absolutely right because you're depending on the Heisman Trust to do the right thing.
Yeah, and they
haven't done the right thing. Yeah,
they
let Johnny Manziel stand on that stage, but they won't let Reggie Bush. It's bullshit. Like it's hypocritical bullshit. And I would not bar Johnny Manziel from standing on that stage. By the way, if you want to know my opinion, the issue is just that Reggie is not allowed there. So. And I'm singling out Johnny Manziel because he is literally admitted to taking thousands of dollars for signing autographs while a student athlete.
There was that story going around TikTok or whatever about how he would take his receivers to throw a dartboard at a wall and a map, and then he and his receivers would go hang out there for the weekend.
Yeah, but
on his dime.
Take Reggie's Heisman away, why don't you? So that's really dumb. The Heisman Trust is dumb. One day I think they'll figure it out. I don't know when that is. As far as I'm concerned, USC should say screw you guys. And when they figure out how they're going to put up the number 13 jersey at the Coliseum, they need to just bite the bullet and say we're going to factor in space for 2 because the number 5 should also go back up. But
the other thing is the number 5 jersey. Yes, okay, he doesn't officially have his Heisman. Fine, whatever. That doesn't mean that SC can't retire. Like it's their own jurisdiction of whether or not they're going to retire his number.
Yeah.
Just retire the number.
Yeah.
Like who cares? We all know that it's basically retired anyway. So the other thing is we had seen comments and gotten questions about whether or not Caleb Williams is going to mention Reggie by name in the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Chris Fowler said that this was the 8th Heisman Trophy
win. Did
it
twice. I love it.
Yes. So Chris Fowler doing his little dig to recognize Reggie Bush, but
Caleb did it right. Caleb's speech, I think he did it right. He acknowledged the Heisman winners who were there on the stage from USC: Matt Leinart, Carson Palmer, and Mike Garrett, and he left it at that.
Yeah, and I know there are a lot of people that wanted him to. I saw one comment at some point of someone saying that I won't accept the Heisman unless you're free Reggie. Like
no.
That was never going to happen.
No, it's his night too. It's not Reggie's night. It's his night.
But I think that this is what you do the second time around.
If
The
you win,
second time around, you go up the second time around, then you can say
have some
like,
fun with it.
then you can bring Reggie as your guest or something like you can get weird with it. You don't want to get weird with it the first time,
Yeah.
right? Like the first time you need to like go and like just win the thing. Like
Yeah.
do the thing the simplest way. Larry Pilgrim says, is Damani Jackson going to be healthy to start spring ball? I would was there's something about, was he getting an off-season procedure? Did I miss that?
I have not seen that.
Because he got time in the Utah game, in the championship game.
Yeah, I would wager he'll be good to go for spring. But like you said, if there's an off-season procedure, a lot of times guys will end the season and then get that stuff taken care of, and then be limited in spring, and then hopefully be full go for fall. So we'll have to see. We'll know more of that in about a month.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on Tackett Curtis to be the guy that anchors the turnaround for SC next year as a true freshman coming in from Louisiana. The other thing is there's still Damani Jackson, who was a 5-star top 10 recruit. Like he's still there, and his impact is yet to be seen. And he's going to get an opportunity considering that Mekhi Blackman won't be their corner.
Yeah, losing Mekhi Blackman means that Damani Jackson really needs to be able to step up and take over that role. Although Tony Grimes from North Carolina, who's apparently in the transfer portal, just tweeted "Fight on?" ? So maybe there's help coming for the secondary from the transfer portal, but we'll find out about that.
We'll see. Malcolm says, I'm not as high on Tuli as an NFL prospect as many. He's kind of a tweener. I kind of agree with this.
I agree too.
I also think there's I really like watching Tuli, and I like how prolific he can be and dominant in certain games. But I think there's holes in his game where I think he can still be a little bit more well-rounded, and I think he would be served well by another year. But how do you turn down first round draft money? Like that's.
But that's the cool thing about NIL though, is
theoretically,
is in theory, if you're not in line for first round draft money, then staying and sort of building a legacy at school is suddenly a viable financial opportunity because you don't have to depend. But no one, and this is also, not quite Pete Carroll's philosophy, but Pete Carroll's philosophy was always, if you're the number one player at your position, you should absolutely go. I would say if you are getting a first round grade, then you should go, because even if you fall in the second round, you're still in a really good spot. So if that's the grade that Tuli is going to get from the NFL, then he should respond to that. But I agree with Malcolm. He looks like a tweener to me. And I have a hard time seeing where he would succeed, like where his role in an NFL defense would be. And if the NFL comes back and sees the same thing and gives him like a second or third round evaluation, then you know what? Think about it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I do think that the idea that, well, you don't need to go to the NFL draft because of NIL thing, like I get why we can say that.
It just gives you the option.
Yes,
is what I'm saying.
I do think it's a little bit self-serving from the college football perspective to bank on that reality.
Yes,
like I don't think that it's an actual reality. Because like I've seen, the thought of, well, what if Caleb Williams, he makes so much money from his whatever that he could just stay at SC and just like that's not realistic. Like he wants to go to the NFL. He'll go to the NFL as soon as he can, because that makes him closer to getting $300 million when his contract is up, because like that's how it works for a quarterback.
Yeah,
of his potential, if he sees that potential, which already is going to be very difficult, because you can be as good of a quarterback as you are in college, like Caleb Williams is, and that could mean nothing when you get to the NFL. Like it's still a crapshoot. And you got to be in the right system and all of that, and be healthy and all those things. Dave says, did we get a straight answer about what happened to Cortland Ford this season?
No, not really. It's just a situation where he was clearly not sort of right physically. And by the time, I mean, if he ever got right physically, then Mason Murphy, I guess, had already proven himself, or they were already back to Bobby Haskins or something like that. All we know is just he, he wasn't getting playing time, and maybe we'll get a clue about that. Like if he enters the transfer portal, then that sort of gives us a clue, and if he doesn't, that sort of gives us a different clue.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see what comes of Cortland Ford. Eric says maybe a idea for a future show, but have you done any film study of how Lincoln and Garrett being Garrett Riley, call offensive plays? I'm curious what the similarities and differences are.
That would be interesting to look at. It would have been even more fun to look at if USC and TCU were playing each other in the dang playoff.
What if? What if
Alas,
SC brought Garrett Riley in?
that would be really fun, but why would Garrett Riley do that? Why on earth would Garrett Riley do that? I'll say just on a quick just a quick pulling up their resumes, right? So Lincoln Riley is from the Mike Leach tree. He got started at Texas Tech with Mike Leach, went through East Carolina to Oklahoma to USC. Garrett Riley goes from East Carolina to Kansas, spends a few years at Kansas to App State to SMU to TCU. So Garrett Riley is not necessarily of the same tree directly through Mike Leach, who, by the way, everyone's thoughts and prayers are with the coach.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what their
sort
of philosophy is in that.
Well, the interesting thing is Garrett Riley did not come with Lincoln Riley to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
When they were at East Carolina together, a lot of guys went from East Carolina to Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. Like he brought dudes with him. Garrett Riley was not one of them, and I'm sort of curious what that ended up being, because he goes back to being an offensive analyst with Kansas the next year. So I don't know. I don't know what the situation is there. But here you want my harebrained idea? You ready for this? When Lincoln is ready to go to the next level, that's when you bring in Garrett Riley for a year. And you just make him the next guy. You make him your successor.
I mean,
and then suddenly Lincoln Riley is like, yes, I will coach the Bengals. Harebrained, meaningless.
That's pretty harebrained.
No, I get it. I get it. I'm just trying to say, because there's no other reason for Garrett Riley to go to SC, because he's not going to call plays at SC over Lincoln. And in the only reason to go to SC is if there was just a bunch of money in it, and that's it. But if you're Garrett Riley, you want to be that guy because you want to position yourself to get a head coaching job of yourself, right? And he's doing that. At this rate, he's absolutely gonna, be one of those top guys to get interviews and all that. So, yeah. Reverend Murdy says, "What do you think of the World Cup semifinals? They start tomorrow." Croatia and Argentina, and then followed by France and Morocco. What do you got?
Rooting hard for Croatia and Morocco, because that is a final that I would enjoy.
Yes, I am rooting heavily against Argentina and France. No one needs to see either of them win. I'm sorry. I get that Messi's never won a World Cup. I don't need to see him win a World Cup. I don't. And as much as I love Mbappe, and France is very fun to watch, they've had their time in the sun. Give me Croatia. Give me Modric finishing off a career. Well, actually, no, he's going to continue. He'll be back when he's like
he's going to play till he's
57.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, Croatia. I'm all about the checkerboard for the next couple of matches.
I'm all about Morocco. I think that they are the story of the tournament. So let's see them keep it going.
Absolutely. So, all right, that's going to wrap up this episode. Talking about Caleb Williams winning the Heisman and so much more. As always, you can follow us on social media. Alicia's on Twitter at Penguin of Troy. I'm on Twitter at MichaelCastFS. Be sure to email us your thoughts on the show, ranoftroy@fansided.com. And as always, like the stream here on YouTube if you're watching this live. And be sure to subscribe. And we'll be back on Thursday. Mondays and Thursdays, 5 p.m. Pacific are the new times. Is the new schedule here as we get ready for bowl prep. We'll start talking about the Cotton Bowl a little bit more as we get closer. The Trojans will start to prepare for the Cotton Bowl as well. So that and more transfer portal stuff and all of that here later this month as we go on with the holidays. Until then, until Thursday, we will see you. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.